If you aren't familiar with this man, shame on you. You will be shortly anyhow. Very special guest today on Locked on Cubs. Happy Friday.
You are Locked on Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. This is Locked on Cubs, part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Thank you for taking the time to make Locked on Cubs your first listen each and every morning. This is an awesome show. We've been looking really forward to this. This guy's taken social media by storm. He's an incredibly talented dude and just a really cool guy. Plus, he's a Cubs fan, which is an awesome perk. It is a pleasure to welcome Joey Mulinaro to the show. Hi, Joey. Good morning.
Andrew, good to talk to you, man. Thank you for all the kind words. It is so cool to hear your voice, one-on-one here when as a Cubs fan, like you said, I had heard it so many times watching the boys. And so it's good to talk to you.
Well, likewise. And that means a lot. Thank you. I told you earlier before we hopped on here that my wife and I are such big fans of yours. And I mean, growing up in Indy, well, first of all, you're in the middle of a move, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time away from that. I got to ask you, there's a lot of really crappy things about moving. What's the absolute worst aspect of moving your home?
Man, I tweeted it out, actually, I think just about an hour or so ago, but the worst thing for me is not moving the boxes, moving the heavy furniture, that stuff. You kind of just, you put on your dingy clothes, you sweat it out, you do it, whatever. The most annoying part about moving is when you just find all of these things that you didn't even realize or remember that you had that just continue to pile up in corners of closets and under the beds and under the sinks, and it just never ends. The packing never ends, and it all has to go. And so that is by far the most, like, you can stuff everything in boxes, pick them up, move them out, take the couch with your dad, do all that. But I mean, at some point you're just like, just torch it, just get it out. I don't want anything to do with it. So we're kind of in that phase right now. We have movers, luckily, who we hired to do all of the heavy hitting stuff, but now we got to just do the miscellaneous boxes, and those are the worst.
The myths. It's amazing how much junk we accumulate, isn't it? It's like, where the hell did this even come from?
And you know what? When we eventually move out of the house that we're about to move into, all the same miscellaneous junk will come back to bite me again. It's just never ending.
I love it. So you grew up in Indy, obviously, no Major League Baseball in Indianapolis. I know, we see on social and everything that you're a huge Steelers fan, which is awesome. How did the Cubs fandom thing evolve for you?
Yeah, man. So my dad, I just get it all from my dad. He grew up in Indianapolis, born and raised here as well. So my family, multiple generations being Indianapolis folks. And, so my dad took to the Steelers, obviously, because we didn't have a football team either when he was a kid. Mm-hmm. And then with the Cubs, I mean, one, geographically fairly close, right? And then they were just always on TV on WGN. I mean, just how many stories have you heard of different fans from across the country who fell in love with the Cubs because every single day, whether it was after school or on the weekends or whatever, the Cubs were on WGN, and they were readily available and accessible. So he, started watching them with his little brother and fell in love with them. And then really for him, he was 12 going on 13, the 1984 season, that magical 84 year. He always tells me about the Van Halen's Jump intro to the Cubs games there, and of course, Sandberg and Sutcliffe and all those folks. So from there, when he was 12 or 13, he already was a Cubs fan. But then, of course, they make that run and are so close to making it to the World Series then. So he just fell in love from there. And then I came along in '93, and that's all I've ever known is Cubs baseball and Wrigley Field, and it's the best. I love it.
I love, that was one of my points, and you hear that so much with the old WGN Superstation. Cubs fans all over the country still because of that. Cubs and Braves with TBS. I mean, as a kid, I grew up in Chicago suburbs, and honestly, I'm not an impressionist, but the first time I heard WGN, I was probably 7, 8 years old. You'll appreciate this, I think. Kerry was on, and obviously at the end of his career at that point. And I don't remember why. My parents, probably my dad, had the game on, and I hear this voice, hello again, everybody. And I'm like, wow, I'm hooked. And that was it. Like that was it. Him and WGN. Yeah, we grew up here, but that's all I needed,
And that, yeah, absolutely. I think, Kerry, rest in peace to him, and had a huge impact on it as well, because even those times when the Cubs were struggling, Harry was entertaining, and he had that lovable aspect that just brought you in and made you want to be a fan even more. And unfortunately, I was only 5 years old when he passed, before the '98 season. But still, as somebody like yourself who's gone into the broadcasting, the media, the entertainment world, and the mix of all three of them. Kerry is such a huge inspiration of just like, hey, somebody who wanted to just have fun and have fun with it, live life, and not take it too seriously. And that's the best. And we were lucky that we, as Cubs fans, got him for the last portion of his career.
Well said, Joey. Did you guys make trips up to Wrigley as a kid then? Do you remember the first time walking in there and that feel that it gives you?
Yes, I was. It was a 10th birthday present. So just like my dad was a kid in '84, in 2003, I was 10 years old. And so my 10th birthday present was my dad took me out of school. We went up to Wrigley on a September day against the Cardinals. And we sat down the right field line because, as a kid, Sammy Sosa, what's better than that?
No doubt.
So we wore our matching Sammy Sosa jerseys, and we sat down the right field line, and Sammy sprinted out, and just, the chills that overcame you with that. But then in the bottom of the first inning, he got rung up on a strike 3 call looking, and he argued with the ump, and he got ejected.
Oh, no.
So I only got to see Sammy for half an inning, really. But I remember the night before, I can't remember it. I think it might have been Moises Alou. Hit a walk-off home run in like the 13th inning against the Cardinals. And again, you're going down the stretch and the division's on the line. And that was my first real taste, because I know in '98 they made the playoffs and everything. And
out of nowhere. Yeah.
Right. Out of nowhere. But again, I was 5, so I didn't, but that, 2003, that was, I vividly remember that whole season, the whole stretch run, my first time at Wrigley there with my dad for my birthday. So that was really the kind of coming out party for me as a Cubs fan, because of, them clinching the division, and then of course everything that went on in the playoffs. So first experience in Wrigley was that beautiful September day. My dad kept the scorebook. We were down there as soon as the gates opened. We went down to because obviously the Cubs bullpen was down the left field line and not under the left center field wall like it is now. And we were so close. Carlos Zambrano was right there, and I'll never forget that too, because I love Big Z. And man, just you don't remember. Now I'm 28. That was when I was 10. You don't remember a whole lot of days, right? As a 10-year-old fully. And I remember everything from the ride up there to having McDonald's before the game, and the whole thing. So it really is incredible what fandom can bring to you.
I love that story. I love stories like that. I'll make the 2 dumb fan statements of the day. First of all, I missed the bullpens being in the field of play. And I know that's so stupid, but I loved it, right? Yeah. And you brought it up because you went over their pregame, right? You're touching those guys. And two, I've argued people on this. I got a couple years on you. Unfortunately, I was a little older in 03, but I have argued people that 03 team was better than the 16 team that won the World Series. Now, I mean, you could, it's kind of an asinine thing to say, but that 03 team was pretty loaded.
They were, and I think they had that thing that you can't really put a finger on in terms of the kind of the it factor that those teams get kind of down the stretch, right? I mean, like right now, like look at like the Cincinnati Bengals in the Super Bowl, right? Like they just have that kind of feel. And then that 2003 team had it. Yes, they were spearheaded by Pryor and Wood and Zambrano up front. And I mean, yeah, like you said, when you look back on the players of Sammy Sosa, Moises Alou, the trade deadline with Kenny Lofton, and it was a very good team. I think they had the upper. I could see where you're coming from there. That would be fascinating to see those teams, on like MLB The Show play against each other or something. But I feel like the 03 team had the upper hand in terms of the magic in a bottle. But I think that 16 team is just, I mean, uber loaded, and eventually, they're the ones that brought it home, as we know. So thank God.
I want to talk about Joey's awesome talents here in a minute. Before we do, want to take this time to remind you that Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. If you haven't had it, I promise, try it. You're going to like it. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15. You get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built Bar. Locked On Cubs rolls on after this. Back into Locked On Cubs. Thank you for taking the time today to make us your first listen each and every morning. As a matter of fact, we're free and available wherever you download your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube as well. We can't thank you enough for being part of the Locked On Cubs family. Joey Mulinaro, special guest today. Such a treat to have him along. I want to remind you quickly, it's Super Week brought to you by Get Upside, and there's no better place to get coverage of the big game than the Locked On NFL podcast. Locked On Bengals, Locked On Rams, they are in LA covering the big game all week long. Joey, people like yourself, I liken it to like a really top tier athlete. Like you're born, you can teach people a certain amount of talent, but you're born with what you have, right? Like I was never going to play first base like Anthony Rizzo or Mark Grace for my era. I thought I looked like him, but I didn't, right? You're so talented, and obviously you work at your craft, but you are, to an extent, had to have been born with what you have.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I tell people who ask, it wasn't just something that like all of a sudden 4 years ago, it just kind of like clicked and I was like, oh, I can do an Andrew Luck. It's been a natural progression throughout my life. When I was 8, 10, 12, 14, I was always kind of, I wasn't the class clown, but, at sleepovers or birthday parties or just kind of like in downtime at school, I could hold court, pretty well, making fun of teachers or coaches or friends' parents or, just different people like that I would pick up on things and impersonate them. And it would always get a laugh out of people. But then as I got older and I'm going to school for media and for radio and for television, I'm kind of like, well, maybe I can transfer, that skill set that I had when I was a kid to maybe some more public figures and add that as kind of a feather in the cap. So I started trying doing it, back in like 2019, and it worked, it stuck pretty well. And then ever since then, it's just kind of been a evolving thing of trying to, use the impersonations that I can do, add on to them, add more people, but then also, working into sketch comedy and different bits like that. So yeah, it's always been something, I was kind of the living room impersonator, if you will, for a lot of my life. And then I was like, all right, well, let's try to go public with it.
Well, we're really glad you decided to go public with it. So you've had this knack for a long time. You knew at an early age that you were able to dig deep and kind of find this hidden talent.
Yeah, you know, just because I mean, I grew up going to Catholic schools my whole life, and so whether you know priests were a very easy target. You know, our CYO football coaches. Yeah, I mean, every kid, whether it's a Catholic school or public school or whatever, you know, the teachers are always easy targets as well. So just picking up on those things and having fun with my buddies and different kids I went to school with, and you know, I guess when I was 12 or 13, I never really would have thought I could turn it into a career and help me turn it into a career, but well, we got lucky.
So awesome. We talked a little bit about Harry Kerry. I heard you say once during an interview that your goal was to remain, in the sports broadcast industry when you were in college and whatnot. If Joey turned into Joey, the sports play-by-play guy, what would your stick be? I mean, you'd be like Bob Uecker-esque or a more polished Al Michaels, or what route are you going there?
Yeah, I like that. I like the Bob Uecker, because to me, he's kind of holding court as a comedian through his broadcast. And so I think that would definitely be kind of the route that I would take, especially for, baseball. Baseball would be so fun to do just because you got so much time to tell stories or, poke fun at things in the audience, or like Kerry would talk about people's names or what. I mean, there's just so much more room, as compared to basketball or even football, as you know. So, I miss doing play-by-play. I was telling my wife that the other day. I used to do it a lot in college before I really decided that I wanted to kind of take the entertainment or the comedic route, and head that direction. But, who knows? Maybe I'll hop back in the booth one day.
Who are some of your faves, multi-sport, that are on the air now or in the past, voices that you maybe grew up with or idolized or still enjoy today?
Yeah. Starting with folks close to the Cubs. Well, unfortunately, it used to be, but Len Casper. I think Len Casper and JD and Boog and JD phenomenal as well.
Yeah.
But she's from, what was it? 06. Oh, so what was Len Casper's first year? Some 05, 06?
Yeah, right in that right there.
I was 12 years old. So from that all the way up to past the World Series run, Len Casper, and then obviously, Bob Brenly was there, but Len Casper and JD, gosh, they were such a phenomenal pairing. And like I said, Boog and JD are the same, but like they knew their role of like, they were cheering on the Cubs, but not blatantly. And they had fun with it. And JD's always got his one-liners, and it's such a nice mix of insight with humor. It's beautiful. It's just the soundtrack of your summer for however many years. Such fond memories with that. Love Iron Eagle. I think Iron Eagle's phenomenal. Just so good, just always has the best highlight calls. Gus Johnson, of course, right? Who doesn't love a little Gus? The excitement that comes from there. Kevin Harlan is obviously super good. Joe Tessitore, all those play-by-play guys are really, really great. And then, of course, the classics. You miss I was old enough to remember the very tail end of like Keith Jackson, and then Brent Musburger. Phenomenal there. So all those dudes just have such fond memories growing up listening to them and watching them.
Now you go to we'll switch to the analyst side as long as we're in the booth. My wife and I are just giant Cris Collinsworth fans, and nobody nails a Cris Collinsworth like you do. But I'm a little nervous. Is it, he was a Bengal, right? Long time, calling the Super Bowl this weekend. That's conflict of interest, is it not? What are we doing here?
I know. I tweeted out like last week because it kind of hit me. For a second, I was like, oh, and then I connected the dots, and I'm Zach Galifianakis gif of all the math. I'm like, holy cow, Collinsworth calling the game. The Bengals are in. This is crazy. What are the chances? So hopefully once the hecticness, craziness of moving winds down here today or tomorrow, I'm hoping to be able to get maybe a little Collinsworth bit in there before Super Bowl Sunday. But yeah, I mean, Cris is another guy. Cris and Al. I mean, good Lord, right? It's just putting you to sleep every Sunday. Just so good. They bounce off each other well. The chemistry's there. Uncle Al with the with the gambling nods every now and then Cris. It's proof to me that no matter how good you are at your job, that somebody like Joe Buck and Cris Collinsworth, as they are, that there's just always going to be haters. There's always, if you're in the light like that, there's always going to be people who are sick of you just because, I mean, Cris Collinsworth is a phenomenal broadcaster and does a great job with insight and just, but he gets hated on because he's just the guy that's there every week, and I'm with you. I love CC, and he's been nothing but great to me. So
yeah, he's great at what he does. You're right on the money. I swear to God, Joe Buck can't do a game without him trending on Twitter. I mean, he's so good. I mean, he's so good. Yeah, and I know people in Chicago. That's not the consensus, but I've always been a Joe Buck guy. I think he does a phenomenal job across any sport.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Baseball's been slow now. We're locked out. Obviously, we've got distractions. College basketball's humming, Super Bowl week, but that's going to start to fade, right? Football goes away. We turn our attention to spring training. Oh, wait, no, it's not there. As a fan, and I'm a fan, I mean, I'm PO'd, at this point. In early December, right, I thought, okay, they're being proactive, lock it out, hash it out, and we're not going to lose anything. Well, that's not the case now. I mean, we have the right to be mad now, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate because it's like, yeah, I feel like we've all just kind of gotten to the point where it's such an afterthought now that it's, we're mad, but at the same time, it's just kind of becoming indifferent, which is really dangerous, I think, I mean, everybody always says like, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And so it's like, if you reach that point of indifference and kind of apathy where you're just like, screw it. These people are running a what show, and we're gonna move on to focusing on the NBA, or like me. I mean, I've tried to dive headfirst into NASCAR and like all motorsport and horse race. I mean, it's like, fine, if you want to be that way and you don't want to give us product, then you know what, we're gonna move on and we're gonna find other ways to entertain ourselves. But I'm with you. I mean, it's always about this time of year where I start kind of looking ahead to the Cubs schedule. Okay, what weekend do I want to try to pin to get up to Wrigley? You know what I mean? What, summer weekend in June or July, and take on the bleachers and then go to Sluggers and have a great time. And unfortunately right now I can't do it. So,
Yeah, it stinks. More with Joey Mulinaro here coming up on Locked On Cubs. Before we get there, I want to remind you that BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues through the playoffs and heading to the Super Bowl this weekend. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news all season long. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers they have available. BetOnline, where the game starts. Welcome back into Locked On Cubs. Awesome guest today. Such a treat. Joey Mulinaro joins us. Joey, can we do some rapid fire?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Are you signing up for another Steelers Super Bowl or Cubs World Series? But you can only have one.
Cubs World Series. I've seen two Steelers. I've seen 3 appearances. Give me back in there. Give me an October.
Good answer. You beer guy, wine guy, bourbon, other, all the above?
Technically all the above, but if I'm picking, I'm going wine. Give me a red Cabernet Sauvignon.
I love that. You're speaking my language there. What's your favorite tailgate food?
Sliders. Whether it's it could be pulled pork, burger, fried chicken, sliders all day. I'll house those.
Love it. Who wins a head-to-head formal debate? Cris Collinsworth or John Madden?
Collinsworth. I think Madden might be more physically imposing and intimidating. Rest in peace to the legend. But I mean, Collinsworth, CC, he's going to slide in there and he's going to make it happen. And he's going to persuade you, man, with that. He's got to start biting that lip. I tell you what. John, I like your point, but I have something a little better here. There's no doubt about it.
No, we're going to get the Super Bowl slide, right? Big weekend for CC. I mean, we got to get a good one.
Him and Al, they're rehearsing, they're practicing. You know, they're getting it down pat because you got what 130 million eyeballs that are going to be on you, and he's getting that down. He's going to have he's probably getting his teeth whitened, you know, for nice bottom lip bite, and yeah, I can't wait.
What's a must stop for you on a game day in Wrigleyville area before or after the game? Where are you going?
Sluggers. Love sluggers. I mean, gosh, really just anywhere around there. But if I don't make it in there for at least a few cold ones before and after, it's not the same.
Do you have a favorite Cub of all time?
Probably Kerry Wood or Anthony Rizzo. Kerry Wood was my guy when I was, again, that 2003, 2005. I mean, that time he was my guy. I was a pitcher when I was 10, you know, so I loved him. And then, I mean, Riz, you know, the captain catching the final out. Love him. Our family's dog is named Rizzo, actually.
Well, there you go. Good choice. I love that. You talked about your craft and you started, you know, you brought it public to share with all of us, which is awesome. You know, when you're going to work on a new sketch, or, I mean, I'm sure you got stuff going on in your head constantly, right? But like, do you sit down and say, okay, this is how this should go? Or does it just kind of comes?
Yeah, you know, my mind is all, you know, like Jerry Seinfeld always talks about how like he's always looking for material, and you can pick up material at a restaurant, at a coffee shop, dropping your kids off at school. I mean, and so my mind definitely, you know, works like that. My eyes always open to what can spark, what is going to be a new original character, what would be a funny impression for, you know, Cris Collinsworth to be in the drive-through or what have you in a sketch. And then usually I write those down in like a general notes app, and I put them in there so I don't forget. And then I come back to them and I'm like, you know, Collinsworth ordering a pizza, and then I'm like, okay, here we go. Here is the premise, and then I hit record and I let it rip. And then if I don't like it, I do it again, and if I do, there you go.
So you're pulling ideas. It's just second nature to you now. I mean, you see anything, and I got to write that down because that could be good. That could be good.
Exactly, and that's, you know, a lot of people are always, you know, a popular question that I used to get a lot was like, you ever afraid that you're going to run out of like material or ideas? I'm like, no, like just because every day I'm excited to wake up, and who knows when you're moving, what could come out of that? You know, there's always something there that you know, you can see. And if you're, you know, keen to it, that you can turn into something that can be a funny bit.
A lot of talk, even though we're locked out, about Carlos Correa linkage to the Cubs for next year and beyond. Where are you at fan-wise? Do you like the big splash, big play, mega contract deals like that kind of get everyone buzzing? Or, you know, you like to maybe allocate funds to a few different players, you know, as once the lockout ends, and spread the wealth a little bit? Or where do you stand on a move like that, a potential Correa signing?
Yeah, it's tough because that would be, you know, on one hand, it would be so exciting, and it would kind of get that feel of like, oh, okay, we're not messing around. We're getting back to, we want to, you know, get back to where we should be, and get back to playing in October, and keep building off of what we have been building for the past decade almost. You know what I mean? Ever since, I know Theo's not with us anymore, but he, you know, what he started. Mm-hmm. And so on that front, it is very exciting. You know, it'd be great to have a Correa jersey and, you know, obvious shirts, I'm sure. And Dom Frederick would have killer merchandise that I would throw my money at, right? That would be awesome. But then, you know, when I take a step back and take my Cubs hat off, I'm like, you just look around and these, you know, 10-year, $200 million deals, or how many of them really end up being beneficial for the squad beyond just having this face of a franchise, exciting player to sell merchandise? So that's tough, you know, because obviously shortstop is an incredibly important position. Correa, you can bash with the best of them. You know, he'd be the face of your franchise, back at it, get that excitement built up again around Wrigley and around the Cubs. but I just that part of me would be hesitant because I'm like, you look, Robinson Cano, Manny Machado, Bryce Harper. How many of these big, huge contracts that you can look around and be like, man, yeah, that's really, really cool, really exciting that this franchise got that player. But did it end up helping him get deep into October? Did it help him secure a World Series ring? I don't know. So I would see the positives and negatives. With whatever happens with Correa.
Yeah, the back end of those mega deals are scary. I don't care who it is,
right.
Typically.
Exactly.
Joey Mulinaro was our guest today on Locked On Cubs. Joey, before we let you go, we want to remind everyone to make Locked On Bets their second listen of the day. Join your boy Q and expert analysis from Lee Sterling. If you haven't checked Joey out on social, please do it. You will enjoy it. He is wonderful. This was such a treat for me. I can't thank you enough, man, to take the time and in the middle of your move to spend a half hour with us. Really, you made my week.
Absolutely, man. That is so nice of you to say. I appreciate it. I'm always down to talk Cubs, so hopefully we can get this lockout going and get ready to play some ball and get back at Wrigley where we all can be happy. One last thing, often, I'm sure this happens to you too. Often people ask me to do impressions. Can I get you saying in your Cubs PA voice, now batting for the Chicago Cubs, Joey Mulinaro? Can we get that? That'd be a dream.
Absolutely. Number 2 or no?
4. Let's go 4.
Number 4.
Yeah.
Now batting for the Cubs, number 4, Joey Mulinaro.
Yes. I could die happy, man. Played over Wrigley, and I'm there. That's incredible.
Joey, you're the best, man. Thank you.
All right, Andrew. Talk to you, man. See ya.
You bet.